Are we ready? Are we ready to use our voice? And are we ready to stop apologizing for using it? Because that is what we do. We apologize for using the voice that we have, for having the opinions that we have, for having something to say. It's a lot. Have you noticed that? We apologize a lot. We start most conversations with an apology. We start most conversations with a I'm sorry, but do you have a minute? Can I interrupt? Can I come in? I need to tell you something. We start most conversations with a excuse me, but I just need a minute, but like with all these different phrases that are really just an apology for having something to say. And I think some of the mindset behind that, right? Some of the tape that plays in our head when we start this conversation with the I'm sorry, but, excuse me, but, I only need a minute, but, right? With this sort of pleading apology approach that we have, there's this voice in our head that says, yeah, I don't want to be a nuisance, right? I don't want to interrupt them. Maybe what I have to say, it's important to me, but maybe it's not that important to them. What if I sound stupid? I should know this already. Um, Nobody wants to hear from me, right? Why don't we speak up? Nobody wants to hear from me. What I think doesn't really matter. I don't have enough knowledge about this, right? There's this voice in our head that plays this tape that leads us to using words and phrases that undermine us, that undermine our power, that undermine our message, that have us coming across not only as softer and weaker, honestly, weaker than we are, less powerful than we are, but sometimes it really muddles the message too, right? And it shows up not only as an apology, but as deflection. We say things like, well, I'm not really the expert here, but, or I don't know as much about this maybe as I should or as you do, but we take compliments. Oh, no, it's nothing. This old thing, no, it was a team effort. It wasn't just me, right? We deflect things instead of taking it in and enjoying it too. So, all of that I just kind of launched into is why I thought we really need to talk about saying what we mean to say, saying it confidently and with power, and stop with the apology, because the apology comes out of our mouths in so many ways, so many different ways. And it takes a bit of practice and a bit of training for us to overcome that and get comfortable with just saying what we have to say, right? Just saying the words and not worrying as much about the landing. So that's a little bit of what I want to talk about tonight. I would love to know, why do you think you're using phrases like that? For those of you who are going, oh yeah, I do that. I start with, oh, I'm sorry, but, or excuse me, and with a little bit of that, oh, sorry, don't mean to like be in your space. Like, for those of you who start conversations with that energy, I'd love to know what phrases you use, why you think you use those phrases. How many of you think that you just don't speak up at all because that voice in your head is so strong about why you should or shouldn't speak up? And oh, hey, I see Terry and I see Joyce are here tonight. Fantastic. Good to see you both. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. For those of you who are here tonight, as always, like Terry and Joyce, speak up in the chat. It's always good to see you there. Ask questions, comments, share. Always makes it a lot more fun. If you're new to Training Tuesday, welcome to Training Tuesday. We're here every Tuesday to talk about different aspects of leadership skills, building your confidence, like tonight, using our voice. How do we use that confidently? What are the things we need to be thinking about if we're going to change habits and patterns, like we're going to talk about tonight? And if you are watching this on replay, also feel free to comment, leave your comments, your thoughts in the comments, because I do check those and respond to those as well. So, and tonight is one of my favorite topics. I say that every week, don't I? What I love about talking about how we use our voice is it's probably one of the tools we have that we underestimate the most, the actual power and value that it has. And that's one of the reasons why I like to focus on how we present ourselves, how we speak up, the words that we choose, when we choose to speak up, when we don't, things like that. Here's the thing. Those phrases that we use to soften our entry into a conversation. I don't want to interrupt you, but I don't mean to take up a lot of your time. Excuse me, if you just have a minute for me. You're the expert, I'm not, but, right? Those phrases that we use, we're softening our entry point. And we soften it because we've been taught that to just come in and claim your space is not safe. That it's rude for women to do that, that it's a turnoff, that people will think we're abrasive or we're too direct or we're rude. We have learned that it's not safe. And our brain, and the reason why this has become ingrained in us is because our brains don't differentiate, right? The trigger that happens in our brain does not differentiate between very real physical danger and emotional danger. The same chemical reaction in our body gets triggered, right? The same sympathetic nervous system gets triggered whether you're staring at a saber-toothed tiger or someone says to you, we need to talk, right? It's the same stress response, the same anxiety, the same fear, the same voices in our head that start with the negative stories kick in, and the brain isn't distinguishing between you better run and this person's a jerk. They're just not. We get the same reaction. When we know that, right, when we can be aware that we're being triggered in that response, it becomes easier for us to recognize where this comes from. The training that we have that has happened our entire lives, that has taught us not to speak up, comes from a lot of different places, right? It comes from our childhood. If you were raised in a household of girls are to be seen and not to be heard, you don't speak unless you are spoken to. Nobody wants your opinion unless they've asked you for your opinion. Did they ask? Right? When you're raised with those messages, you learn not to volunteer information, ideas, or thoughts. You could have past trauma to speaking up. There's a time where you really leaned in and used your voice, and the response was so forcefully negative that your brain and your body both went, nope, nope, not doing that anymore. Not again. Could be fear of retaliation. It could be you've used your voice and at some point at work or even in the family, somebody used what you said against you. And so you've learned, no, I keep things close to the chest. I keep things private because other people are dangerous when I use my words or share my ideas. So there's a lot of reasons why. In this day and age, 2025, nearly half of women who are in leadership positions in the workplace still say that speaking up at work is difficult for them. They still don't feel safe. That is how prevalent it is in our society overall to train women to play small, to speak quietly, to be small. We've trained them. The overriding concern that most of my clients will acknowledge, these other things may have happened, and still the overriding concern that most of the clients that I work with will acknowledge when it comes to not speaking up and not using their voice is judgment. What will other people think of me? If I express this idea, if I ask that question, there's that voice in my head that says, should you say that? That's not a very smart question. You should know the answer to that already. What if you're wrong? What if you look stupid? Ooh, what if I say this and everybody hates me? What if it's a dumb idea? What if? We what if to death what anybody and everybody else in the room might think. This keeps us quiet. And here's the thing. This is all overcomable. I was going to say you can overcome. It sounds weird. I was trying to think of a better word and I don't have one. You can overcome this. Whether it's a fear of public speaking or a fear of just voicing your opinion in a meeting or speaking up even in your family environment, it kind of doesn't matter. You will never, you don't even have to love public speaking to just be better, right? To just feel more, not better, to feel more comfortable voicing your opinion and saying what you need to say, what's important for you. I'm looking at Terry's comment here because I have to have the comments on a separate screen. I've been told I am too direct and need to soften my communication to customers, especially during contract negotiations. I think oh, Terry, I love this comment so much. I love this comment so much. We're going to talk about this. This goes to, and I know you've heard me say this goes to the Brene Brown, like clear is kind. We're going to talk about that, this comment. Hold on to this for a second because this is good. And by the way, I too have been told I am too direct and need to soften, adjust my commentary, my feedback so that other people can take it in better. And I'm going to go back to, and I am going to talk about this in a minute, but I'm going to go back to like other people are adults too. Like it's not like I'm scolding children here. We're at work. So, all right. So let's get back to, but that's number three in my 5 questions. I have 5 questions that are the keys to how we can start working on that pattern of apologizing and playing small and instead turn it into speaking with more power, more authority, and more confidence without second guessing, questioning in our head, like what's going on. So thank you for sharing that, Terry, because I want to talk to that. However, if you are ready to stop using the apology and start just say what you say, right? And be comfortable with saying what you say. Be confident in what you say. Then the first question you want to ask yourself, the first question you need to dig into is, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? What are you feeling and where are you feeling it in your body? Like, what's the fear? Because when we don't speak up and we know that it's that fear-triggered response, right? When we are not saying what we want to say, what we need to say, what we mean to say, something is holding us back, and that is fear. 98% of the time, that is fear, not discernment. There's a difference. What's the fear? What's the fear? So what are you afraid of? Is your throat closing up? You're afraid of using your voice because maybe you've been punished for using your voice before? Is your heart palpitating in your chest because you're worried that there might be somebody attacking you or judging you for this? Is there a knot in your stomach and you're feeling nauseous? You're thinking that you might be judged as stupid or you should know something already? Is it anxiety that's coming up? Is it anger? Is it guilt? Like, what is it? The more you can identify and the clearer you can get, what is the fear? What's happening here? Am I worried about being judged? Am I worried about being wrong? What is going on? The more clear you can get about that, then you can move on to the second question. And the reason why I tap into, like, is it your throat? Is it your chest? Is it your stomach? Because sometimes when you can identify where in your body the fear is reacting, it can help you tap into what the thought process is. Our bodies respond to our emotional states faster than our logical processes do. I know when my throat closes that I have something I really need to say and it is stuck. Like, I want to speak, but when my throat closes, I'm stuck because whatever it is that I need to utter feels bigger than me. It feels bigger than me. I know when my heart is pounding and I'm not speaking up, but I'm super nervous and my heart is pounding and maybe I'm going to speak, but maybe I'm not really sure. For me, when it's in my chest, the fear is more of an emotional wound. I'm going to get hurt or I'm going to hurt somebody. Something emotionally is happening here. I know if it's a knot in my stomach and I'm feeling nauseous, it's because I'm worried. Am I prepared? Do I know enough? Right? So for you, it might be different. But when we know where in our body it's happening, it can clue us into what the true fear is. So that's why question number 1 is, what am I afraid of? Question number 2 is when I know what I'm afraid of, right? When I have an idea of what that is, now my question is, okay, what's the worst that can happen? Question number 2, what's the worst that can happen? I know what my fear is now, so what's the worst that can happen given my fear? And I just saw Joyce made a comment. When I start with an excuse me, I don't want to interrupt, sorry to butt in. It's because I was taught to get the person's attention before I start talking. If I can't get their attention, I can't talk, and I won't try to talk over them. Okay, so a couple things there. One is about getting their attention, and the other is about interrupting. So I get the interrupting part. Like, I won't talk over them. I won't intrude if they're already talking. I get that. That's fine. Getting their attention, what I would posit is there are other ways to get their attention than to say, I'm sorry. Or excuse me. Like, there's hello. And excuse me is borderline. Excuse me, it's kind of excuse me, and then we start minimize. Excuse me, I only need a second of your time, right? We start immediately downplaying the moment. But just excuse me, hello, excuse me, I have a question for you. Excuse me, there's something I need to tell you, right? That's different than, excuse me, could I just have a minute of your time, right? Different energy, different impression that we're leaving. Right? When we start the conversation with the minimizing, I'm sorry, but I just need a minute. When we start minimizing, we've already told the other person what I have to say isn't important. What I have to say is not a big deal, that you don't need to really listen to me. So when we're speaking powerfully, we want to send a different energetic message. So I completely get what you're saying, Joyce, that we are trying to get the attention so that the person is listening, right, when we say what we need to say. And what I would say is, let's practice then different ways of getting that attention and anchoring them in the moment with us, so that we're not doing it in a way that immediately starts us off on the foot of, oh, I'm sorry, but I just have a little unimportant thing to share with you, right? That instead we're saying, hi, I have something I need to run past you. I have something I need to tell you. Hi, can we talk? Right? Things like that. Okay, so question number 1 was, if you're feeling because we're talking now about kind of we're not saying the thing because we're nervous about not saying the thing. Identify the fear. So what are you afraid of? Question number 2 is, what's the worst that can happen? The reason why this is a great question is because usually the worst that can happen is way bigger in our head than it is in real life. If the worst that can happen is I say something stupid and everybody in the room thinks I'm stupid, well, that kind of sucks, doesn't it? Okay, so let's take that a step further. So I say something stupid, everybody in the room thinks I'm stupid. What next? What does that mean? Does that mean everybody goes on with their day thinking, oh my gosh, Natalie's an idiot? Does it mean I now have a branded reputation across the entire company as being stupid? It doesn't. It doesn't. If you think about other people who have spoken up in meetings and said something stupid, how long were you locked into that moment? How many times has someone that you genuinely liked, how many times has your BFF at work said something in a meeting that had you cringe and go, oh, wish you didn't ask that question. Oh, wish you didn't say that. All the time. All the time. Here's the thing about the risk and the fear that's tied to the risk. We are the only ones who are truly, truly focused on the worst that can happen. And we are the only ones who carry that with us for the rest of the day, for the rest of the year, for however long it takes. I guarantee you that when you speak up in a meeting and you make that comment and it sounds stupid, that anyone in the room who thinks it's stupid is going to think that's stupid for probably 15 seconds, and if they're really dwelling on it, 90 seconds. And within 7 minutes, they've completely forgotten about it because the conversation has moved on. And they have moved on with it. And when everybody leaves the meeting, or hangs up on the Teams call or Zoom call or whatever you use, they've already forgotten about you and your stupid comment. She who makes the stupid comment is still stewing in her head about how stupid she sounded and how she wished she didn't say that and she wished she could take it back. And probably for the rest of the day, I'm going to go talk to a couple friends and go, oh my God, I can't believe I said that stupid thing. I'm the only one reliving the moment. Nobody else cares. No one is focused on me the way I'm focused on me. Nobody is paying attention to my faux pas and foibles and mess ups and me tripping on the sidewalk. Nobody's paying attention as much as I am. So really, what's the risk? How big is the risk really for you to speak up? If you're honest and objective about it, the size of the risk goes way, 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 way down when you start really putting a lens on what is the worst that can happen. And I guarantee you whatever the worst is that can happen, you can survive. 100% survivable. Unless the risk is genuinely that you will be shot on the spot, which pretty much never happens in corporate America. Pretty much never happens. It is survivable. So question number 2, what is the worst that can happen? Question number 3, what's the purpose in using your voice? What is your purpose? Because if your purpose is just to fill the space with words or to make other people comfortable, that is a waste of your breath. It's a waste of your breath. If your purpose, though, if the clarity in using your voice is because you have something to communicate, because you have a message to deliver, because you have a question to ask, because you don't know an answer and you need to fill in blanks, totally valid. This is where clarity is important. This is where I want to get to Terry's comment about being too direct and clarity, especially she's in contract negotiation. We have to remember, we don't have to remember, it's important to remember. Favorite quote, you guys hear me say it all the time from Brene Brown, clear is kind. Having clarity in the purpose for how we're using our voice gives us clarity in how we communicate. Clarity is key. Okay, clarity is key. Because when we start using those softening phrases of, listen, I know I'm not the expert here. You're really the expert here. I just had this little idea. I just wanted to pass it by you. And you're probably going to think it's so, it's not a great idea. It's probably a really stupid idea. The minute we start padding our language with all that stuff, we're giving the listener too many anchors to try to tie into to figure out what the message is. We don't know what the message is. Wait, am I supposed to pay attention to that detail or that detail? Wait, she just said this. I'm lost now. Clear is kind. When we don't worry about padding our language with all the niceties and making sure we say all the nice things, and this is why that feedback rule of the sandwich, say something nice, say something negative, say something nice, I think is a stupid rule for giving people feedback at work. Different training Tuesday about giving feedback, but this is one of the reasons why. Because we cloud the message you really want them to take away with them. We cloud it, and then there's no focus there. I've shared this story before, and it's absolutely true. In my 20s, when I was in college, so I was 20 or 21. I sat there listening to a guy tell me for 10 minutes what a great girl I was. What a great girl I am. 10 minutes, he's telling me this. We had been dating for, 4 months, 5 months, something like that. We were right at that point in dating where it's like you're going to make a go of it and be a couple and see how this goes, or you're calling it quits because you've done a few months, it was fun, but works not. He sat there for 10 minutes telling me how great I was, and for 9 of those minutes, I was sitting there going, okay, I'm following the greatness story, and yeah, I think I'm pretty cool, that's fine, I'm 20, 21, of course I think I'm great. But it took that time for me thinking, what's happening here? Why is he telling me this? Is there's a message here? What's the message here? Did I misunderstand something? And I finally cut him off. I cut him off at 10 minutes and said, excuse me, are you breaking up with me? Yeah, he was. And he could have saved us 9 minutes if he had just said, hey, I think you're great. Fine, start with that. I think you're great. This is not working out for me, however. I wish you the best of luck. I'm going to go date other people. Bye. Would have hurt. Would have hurt. But it would have hurt in 1 minute instead of 9 minutes of anxiety and wondering what's going on, only to get to the hurt at the end. Right? Only to get to the same amount of pain. Pain is the same. Why waste 9 minutes of my life telling me all the things I already know because you're too chicken to just say what you need to say? Clear is kind. Clear is also important because I genuinely, had I not asked the question, could have walked away from that conversation thinking we were still dating. So when we start padding the conversation with the things because we think we're being kind to the other person, because we think we have to frame things in a way that makes it more palatable to other people, when we do that, we can lose the actual message that needs to be delivered. And this is why I see miscommunication in corporate America all over the place. People are so worried about framing things and positioning things the right way. And I'm in marketing. That's what we do. But when you do it, right, when you overwork it, you don't know what's going on. So, clarity. What is your purpose for using your voice? Be clear on why you're speaking. Fourth question you want to ask yourself is, who am I in this conversation? Who am I? Am I the question seeker because I'm missing knowledge? Am I the contributor because this is something that I've participated in and know something about? Am I the expert because this is actually my topic? We don't trust enough, and I mean this is a blanket statement. Women, we do not trust enough our knowledge, our experience, and our intuition. In corporate America, we talk about KPIs, key performance indicators. In coaching, I talk about KEIs, knowledge, experience, intuition, because that's our compass. You already have knowledge, learning, education. You already have years of experience. You also have intuition. You also have a gut instinct that knows from that combination of knowledge and experience, that knows what the right thing to do is, what the next thing is you want to try, what you're going to say. Trusting your knowledge, your experience, and your intuition is where confidence comes from. If you are asking a question because there is a gap in your knowledge, that's a perfectly valid reason for using your voice. And in which case, in that situation, you're a seeker. You are seeking knowledge. You are seeking information. If you are somebody who is volunteering an opinion, it's because somewhere in your knowledge, experience, and intuition, you have something connected to the topic that gives you a voice and an opinion. You have enough information to connect some dots to say, hey, here's an idea. Or you're the expert. This is especially true when you're presenting. So many times we spend hours over preparing for a presentation because we're nervous about all the questions we're going to get. We're nervous that we're going to present it the right way, that they're going to understand us, right? All of that. The truth is, you're the expert. If you are giving the presentation, you know more about the topic than anyone else. And if you know more about the topic than anyone else, then I don't care what questions they ask. You have the knowledge, the experience, and the intuition to handle 90% of the questions that are asked. 10% of the questions that are going to be asked of you are going to come out of left field. They're going to be either going to be so deep and in the weeds that why would you know, or they're literally going to be irrelevant. And usually when people ask irrelevant questions, it's because they're trying to deflect. They're trying to create confusion and chaos in whatever it is that you're selling, or they genuinely couldn't follow, and that's on them, not on you. Okay? So trust your knowledge, your experience, and intuition. When you've identified your fear, when you have clarified the risk is not as great as we think it is, there are no saber-toothed tigers in the room. When we know, why am I speaking? Right? What's my purpose? Am I volunteering an opinion? Am I proposing something? Am I the lead speaker? Am I asking a question? Right? But why am I using my voice? 4 is, and what's my role in this? Who am I? Am I tapping into my knowledge, my experience, and my intuition in this case? How am I leveraging that? Fifth, the fifth question to ask yourself is the internal question of, in using my voice in this moment, what if it's not about being right? What if it's not about being right? What if it's about being real? I said this, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago in a Training Tuesday, I said this. And I wrote it down also on a little sticky note, because sometimes when we communicate and use our voice, the power isn't in the right or the wrong. Being right or wrong doesn't actually make us stronger or better leaders. It often has nothing to do with being right or wrong. Being real matters. Connecting at a level with people that your opinion, your idea shows them that you understand where people in the room are coming from and you're involved. Asking a question that shows people, actually, I don't understand what's going on, helps you connect with others in the room who feel like they don't understand and build the bridge to those who do. So owning your voice, owning that I'm using my voice because it's not just about voicing my opinion. It's not just about overcoming my fear. It's not just about sharing my knowledge or my experience. It's also about being real and being engaged, being connected in the moment. This is where power in our voice comes in. If you're uncomfortable still, right, with the speaking up, like this is a habit that we're building into, is speaking up more, using our voice more, sharing our opinion, then there are those bridge phrases you can use to introduce. I have a question about this. May I ask the question, right? You can use the phrase, and again, it's a little bit softening, but it's also a gentler lead-in without discrediting you, is you start with, from what I understand or from what I heard about this project, here is my opinion. So it's not a but. It's not a I'm not the expert but. It's a, from what I do know, here's my opinion. From my perspective, here's what I think. There are bridge phrases that we can practice that still give us power, but allow us to lead in a little more softly into sharing that opinion or that idea. When we do, it is still key when you're going to speak powerfully, right? When you're going to speak up and share that opinion, share that idea, do not over-explain. What we tend to do, especially when we're nervous, once we start talking, right? And this is, when I say own your voice, it's not just about being real. It is about owning how you show up with your voice. Be concise, be direct, as Terry says, because we want to be clear, and let them react. You want to stay focused on the message you're trying to deliver. You don't need to be focused on their reactions, on their questions and their emotions, because they're going to come at you with it anyway. Fine, let them. You will be able to deal with that, because this is your idea, this is your opinion. You have your reasons, you have your knowledge, your experience, and intuition for why you're saying what you're saying. If you can be clear and concise and voice your opinion and then be quiet, you have just established your power. If you voice your opinion, state it clearly and concisely, and then follow up with a whole bunch of word salad, and word salad is usually us repeating our opinion with different words. We'll say our opinion 6 different ways until it kind of, either it becomes kind of gobbledygook and it becomes confusing in the mind of the listener, or the listener is like, you told me already, right? The listener is tired from it. So we don't want to word salad people to death, because it tunes them out. And then it makes what you did say far less powerful. The last bit I want to lead you with, as we talk about say what you say it with confidence, let's stop apologizing, let's start speaking clearly and truthfully, right, from our knowledge, experience, from our sense of connecting and being real. The first few times you do this, especially if you're uncomfortable with it, there will be a hangover. There will be a hangover. You will get off the call, you will walk out of the meeting, and you will immediately go, I can't believe I said that. Should I have said it that way? Maybe I should have said it a different way. Do you think I look stupid? Like, you will immediately, that voice in your head will be questioning exactly what you said and how you said it and all the things. There will be a questioning. How do I feel? How do I feel when I speak up? How did I feel after I spoke up? Did it work? Did it work? What could I have done differently? There'll be all the questioning. Prepare for that. Just prepare. And by prepare, I mean acknowledge now and acknowledge in the moment. Oh, yeah, I knew this was going to happen. I knew I was going to take the risk. I was going to share my idea. People were going to jump on it. And now I'm going to question what everybody said, and I'm going to replay it in my head over and over. It's going to happen. So mentally be prepared that it's going to happen. 2, if you need to, if it's really bugging you, find a friend, find a mentor, find a coach, find a journal, but get it out, sort it out. Because that, and then go back through the questions, like, how big is the risk? What was said? What was the risk to what was said? What does this really mean? What's the impact this is really having? Was I clear? What was my purpose in speaking? Oh yeah, my purpose is still true. You can revalidate the whole reason that you spoke up in the first place and the message of what you delivered. You can revalidate that by revisiting the 5 questions in a journal. You can revalidate it by just talking it through with a friend and having your friend remind you, yeah, I was in that meeting. I didn't think it was stupid. I didn't notice. And frankly, I forgot about it until you brought it up again. But get it out, right? If you're going to hang on to the vulnerability hangover that you used your voice and you're not used to it, it's going to happen. Get it out. Let it go. You have to be prepared to let it go. Growth is uncomfortable. Changing the pattern from not speaking up to speaking up is uncomfortable. And the first dozen times that you use your voice and that you speak up and that you say the thing, you're going to have that hangover and you're going to question yourself. But every time you speak up, it will get more and more comfortable, so that even when you do make the comments that later you're like, no, that really wasn't a great comment, I shouldn't have said that, you will live with it. But the 10th time you do it, you will live with it way easier and forget all about it faster than the first time you do it. But there will be a first time. And that's the beauty of speaking up, is we start to realize our words do have power. They can be influential. They do present us. How we speak is part of how we present to the world. And that's why it's one of your strongest leadership tools. Using your voice intentionally for how you want to present yourself as a leader is a really strong tool. And at the same time, you can say something in a meeting and have it forgotten in the next 7 seconds, and that's okay. It really is. It's okay. Both things are true. All right. Thank you for joining me tonight for Training Tuesday. Don't forget the 5 questions that you go through. The 5 keys to using your voice and not apologizing is ask the 5 questions. What are you afraid of? What is the worst that can happen? What is my purpose in using my voice? Who am I? Who am I? What's the role I'm playing in this, asking this question? And what if it's not about being right, but being real? Thank you so much for joining Training Tuesday tonight. I look forward to seeing you again next week. Dirty Girls, have a fabulous evening.